Hello, this is Good Morning Transfers. There is just 10 days until the Premier League returns, which means, of course, the transfer business is hotting up. So much to discuss here with the former Stoke, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Everton. I could probably chuck in a few more, couldn't I? Goalkeeper Asmir Begovic and our reporter Danielle Khan. Will Bruno Guimaraes get his move to Arsenal? They're considering their options after having a bid rejected. But should Mikel Arteta's men focus on a deal for a forward? Perhaps Vinicus Jr.? Is the experience of Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck exactly what Chelsea need to put together a title challenge? We'll get Asmir's thoughts on that. And as we've got a goalkeeper in the studio, we're discussing goalkeeper transfer fees and whether they're reflective of today's market. Good to see you though, Asmir. Been a month or so since the World Cup breakfasts. What's your situation? Still on the lookout for a club?
Yes, I am. Training, keeping fit. Obviously, I had a really, really good summer, enjoying my time with the family. Enjoying some time off, which is always nice. And looking for the right challenge to hopefully come up and take it on. Yeah.
What's your criteria? What kind of level are we looking at?
Well, criteria, there's quite a few things. It's never easy to put these things together. I think one of the biggest things for me is obviously my family. I've got two young daughters and like to try and spend as much time as I can with them. Football is a lot of sacrifice in it, and the family have sacrificed a lot for me. So trying to spend a bit more time with them, that would be nice. But of course, play as high as possible, keep pushing, and hopefully help a team be successful.
Well, I mean, he keeps telling me he's very influential at Manchester United, so you should maybe sort of...
any check?
I'll make some calls. Manchester might be a bit further away, though. That's the only thing. It's a bit
might not take every box. We can make that one work. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's get started then, guys, shall we? We've got to lead off with Bruno Guimaraes. Dan, bring us up to date here, because it seemed like Arsenal took an age to make contact with Newcastle. They have now. And it's been rejected, this first offer.
Yeah, and, it felt like yesterday was the first step of what could happen in this potential transfer. In terms of, we had been talking for days that there'd be no club-to-club contact just yet. And then it came yesterday when Newcastle rejected Arsenal's first bid for their captain, Bruno Guimaraes. Our colleague Dharma Sheth has said that Arsenal are now considering to go back for another bid, which you'd imagine at this moment in time they will, because he is someone they very much admire, the Newcastle United captain. So that's what the next development that we're waiting for. But what we do know is Bruno Guimaraes did join his teammates yesterday in Spain as part of their pre-season camp that was agreed with the club. He'd been given a few more days off to do that, and we saw quite a classy gesture to the departing previous manager Eddie Howe as well, which by the Newcastle United captain, considering his situation, you have to kind of appreciate this as well, Asmir.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's not an easy situation for Bruno Guimaraes, and everyone involved in Newcastle. So much change, so much transition. But I think last time I was on with you, the Bruno Guimaraes talk started, and I can only see this ending in one way, and that's in Bruno Guimaraes and Arsenal colours. It's inevitable, obviously.
You think there's no way that Newcastle can hold on to him?
No, I don't think so. I really don't. I think when the Premier League champions, Bruno Guimaraes wants to challenge himself, wants to play at the highest level, wants to play in the Champions League. So I think when the Premier League champions come calling, and the fact that Newcastle don't have Europe, and the fact that Eddie Howe has left, I think there's only one option here.
Yeah. From Arsenal's point of view, I've been speaking to some Arsenal fans about it, and obviously they're going to ask the question as well later on FC. Do Arsenal need Bruno Guimaraes? Well, what's your view on that?
Well, I think they do. I think they do need him. I think they need to strengthen. I think when you're Arsenal and you're in this position, I think what's really key for Mikel Arteta, I think all the leadership, the board of Arsenal, Josh Kroenke, is to make the most out of this window. It's their window now to win, to be successful. There's no guarantees in football. When you're on top, I think it's when you keep your foot down on the pedal and you go again and you push again. I think Bruno Guimaraes would be that sort of statement signing, really in the heart of that midfield, to continue to push that team to higher levels. Because I think Arsenal's ambitions are now not just Premier League. Ambitions will be Champions League, multiple trophies, and go from there. In order to do that, you need the best possible squad. And I think Bruno coming in there, in the heart of that team, would add a different layer to that.
I also think it's the next step in the development of this Arsenal squad. I mean, we can look at some of the options they have in midfield. And actually, I think you look at last summer and you look at what Mikel Arteta tried to do with the depth between Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, bringing Eze and Madueke. You look at that midfield there and the options they have. You look at Declan Rice, for example, the gap to whoever comes in for him is quite significant. Yes, they brought in Martin Zubimendi, who maybe petered out a little bit towards the end of last season. You had Miles Lewis-Skelly, who had said he'd been training for 6 months to become a midfielder, who we saw start in the Champions League final. Yes, he's another option. But actually, what you want to see is two very, very strong midfields in the Champions League and the Premier League. And this is a great example of what I'm saying. Declan Rice, 3,099 minutes. I mean, the maximum you can play in the Premier League is 3,400, around that.
Oh.
They were so reliant on him. You think with someone like Bruno Guimaraes, you have the option to come in for him or play alongside him. And that's what I think Mikel Arteta is looking at to really not fix, but add to what he started last summer.
They definitely need more depth because you got the feeling, Zubimendi in particular really ran out of steam, didn't he, at the end of the season. But just looking at just the numbers there, so like now everyone's fit. You've got Marino as well there. So you're talking about if Guimaraes comes in, you've got Guimaraes, Rice, Zubimendi, Lewis-Skelly, Odegaard, Eze and Marino. That's 7 midfielders. Can you keep all of them if you bring Guimaraes in? Can you keep them all happy?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think you can. I really think you can. And I say that because, one, I think Christian Norgard, I think he's been linked with Everton, so I think I could see him leaving. When you look at the last 2 years for Arsenal, we saw Mikel Merino play up front. We've seen Miles Lewis-Skelly play in midfield when things happen. Again, with this extended season that's now past us, with the World Cup, the minutes Declan Rice has played, again, the ambitions of Arsenal, wanting to compete at 4 different competitions, doing all these things. They're going to be playing even more games, more minutes. So that squad's going to be stretched. So there will be definitely enough games, enough minutes to go around for everyone. Injuries are inevitable. They will happen. So no doubt that he can keep all these players happy.
And just to add, Asma, you can probably better talk to this. If you're the Arsenal team, you've had a very long season. You've basically gone as far as you can, got to a Champions League final, you won the league. But to have someone like Bruno Guimaraes potentially coming into that changing room, that must be huge, in terms of seeing the ambition of the club to go again.
Yeah, 100%.
Listen, of course it is, right? And we've seen there that Arsenal need backup in midfield. But what should be the priority here? What's the number one priority? Is it getting a midfielder in? We saw there they've got some strong midfield options already. Or is it improving the attack, in particular left wing?
That's, I think, another position they need to address, and I think they will address it without a doubt.
But should they not address that first?
Maybe that's depending on who's available. We all seem to talk about Vinicus Jr. and whether he's maybe that option. The only other worrying part for me is if I'm Arsenal, how injured is William Saliba? Mm-hmm. What is the deal there? How long will he be out? Because if this is really, if we're talking backs, these are very delicate injuries. Yeah. So I think if it's a case of him being out for an extended period of time, they might also, we saw them link with John Stones a little bit. I could see Arsenal dipping into that centre-half market as well.
Yeah, well, we'll wait news on that. They may well do that as well. What is going on with Vinicius Jr. then at the moment, Dan? Where are we?
Well, I think it's still a watching brief from an Arsenal perspective. I think they'll be watching even more intently now because we saw Vinicius Jr. rejoin his Real Madrid teammates yesterday. He seemed very happy. He was doing his medical examinations in the morning before they did a bit of a video diary with him on his first day back. And look, he's going to sit down with Real Madrid in the coming days, weeks, around what his future looks like at the club, whether he signs a new contract or not. Real Madrid seem very confident he will. They've kind of groomed him from such a young age to become this star at the club. And we saw him in the World Cup, of course, as well. For Arsenal, they're going to see how this unravels. And if Vinicius Jr. doesn't seem likely to sign a new contract at Real Madrid, they'll look to cash in. And I think Arsenal are in the wings to make a move for him.
What is your thought on this? Because there's 2 kind of schools of thought, aren't they? That, this could really happen. This could be the mega signing for Arsenal. And then there's another group, Jay Bothroyd would be amongst them, quite negative on this, saying, Vinny, it's never going to happen. Vinny Jr. is playing Arsenal so that he gets a new contract. Which of those camps would you be in?
Well, that could well be true. I'm not on the inside with the inside scoop here in terms of what's going on. It could well be that he is using it as leverage for Real Madrid and making sure he gets the best possible deal. But in terms of if you're Arsenal, there's a possibility of getting him. financially, if it's doable, to fit him into that left wing position with that strength in the midfield, with Bukayo Saka on the other side, Victor Gyökeres, Kai Havertz in the middle. Now you're talking about a real super team, and that should get Arsenal fans really, really excited.
I think to your point though, Matt, left wing does seem to be the area to strengthen, and I think it's a specific profile of winger as well. I think we saw in the Champions League final, they missed that direct winger who can take someone on that left-hand side. And, that's why Vinicus makes sense. That's also why there's probably a few other wingers who, if that doesn't happen, they can maybe look to pursue. I mean, someone I'd probably throw out, I know his future at the moment seems to be Old Trafford, but I think Marcus Rashford, for example, would be quite a significant reinforcement on that left-hand side, who would immediately improve their situation on that side, and is the right type of profile, I think, that would really be a different type of option for Arsenal.
He has been linked with Arsenal before. I don't think that would be a complete shock if that came up again. Right, Fulham have been active in the transfer markets yesterday, bringing in Gonzalo Garcia and Cesar Palacios from Real Madrid. Let's head to Fulham's training ground now. Speak live to James Cole. Good morning to you, Mr. Cole. And he's got a guest with him. Look, he's got midfielder Harrison Reed. Over to you.
Morning, yes, an exciting new era for Fulham under Alvaro Arbeloa and Harrison Reed, as you say, alongside me. We've spent, 4 or 5 years under Marco Silva. How different does it feel?
Yeah, certainly a fresh start for everyone. Obviously, the manager's come in with real energy, a lot of playing experience behind him, first job in the Premier League, but a lot to look forward to.
How have you had to adapt? Has it been more intense in terms of the pre-season training? What's been specifically different?
Yeah, it's been very intense. The sessions a little bit shorter, but a lot more intense. A few doubles chucked in there, which we've had a chat about. But yeah, it's been really good. The lads have applied themselves really well. Obviously, a lot to learn with the new manager, a few tweaks in the playing style, but the lads are buying into it, and it's been a good start.
Yeah, some of the images I've seen, it looks like you've been put through your paces. Is that a link to a slight change in style in terms of intensity?
Yeah, I think the manager needs to get the message across quickly, how intense he wants us to be. In football, you're going to have good days and bad days, but his message is we're going to run till the end. We're going to fight till the end. So that's being shown on the training pitch for sure.
And he's brought in 2 of his former players from Real Madrid, in Gonzalo Garcia and Cesar Palacios. What have you made of those 2 signings?
Yeah, really exciting. We saw first glimpse of them yesterday in training. Definitely bring a lot of quality. Gonzalo looks like a bit of a machine, a bit of a beast. He was throwing his weight around yesterday, and Cesar looks really good on the ball, technical player. So fresh faces is always good, brings competition. We've got a good changing room, so we'll welcome them really well, make them feel comfortable, and they can give their best on the pitch.
And the fans are very excited by the speed of the transfer activity this summer, and also the 2 big names from Real Madrid. Is that mirrored in the dressing room as well?
Yeah, I think it's always good when there's obviously change at the top with the manager. He wants to get his players and his ideas across really quickly, so that helps for sure. We've got 2 new faces in. I'm sure there'll be a few more to come. But we've got the World Cup boys back together now, so we've got a really strong squad. And we're just getting to work. And
for you personally, does it feel like a clean slate as well? Because you're sort of in a bit on the fringes under Marco in the recent seasons. Does this feel like a new opportunity for you?
Yeah, it was something over the summer I was having a real think about, and then obviously with the managerial change, just gave me a clean slate really. Fresh start, come back in with new energy, and a new manager to show what I can do. And my hard work never changes, but it's about sometimes if the manager sees you in the team or not. And yeah, unfortunately last year Marco didn't really see me in the team, but I stuck with it, kept myself in good shape, and I'm ready to go this season.
And you've been Fulham through and through for a number of years now. You're desperate to extend your career here then?
Yeah, absolutely love it. It's where I call home, feel really comfortable here, started a family here. Listen, I love every day working hard, but at the end of the day you want to play on a Saturday and really feel part of it. So that's my aim this season, to show the manager firstly what I can do, and yeah, hopefully I have a lot more years here. Have
you been showing him that goal against Liverpool? Just trademark finishing.
I have told him a couple of times. Yet to show him in training, but yeah, obviously that was a real highlight of last year. But yeah, hopefully he's seen that and he knows what I'm capable of.
Do you now take more shots from long distance? Does it change the way you look at this?
Yeah, I do actually. Do you know what? Before that, I remember thinking to myself, like watching Premier League goals and things like that on the TV, and thinking, like, would I ever score one like that? And obviously it happened, and it came in a spell in training where I was sort of taking more shots from distance. it was a message from the manager and the coaching staff, really, sort of like, we don't shoot enough, we try to score perfect goal, and you see every weekend these goals going in, but it doesn't really happen for us. So obviously amazing to happen, and now I take my chance a little bit more.
And Arbeloa has said he wants to take the club to the next level. That next level is European football. Could that happen this season, or do you think it's too soon?
Who knows? Well, look, we've got a really good squad. I think the last couple of seasons we've run it close. We've been fighting for that to the last few games of the season. So not going to put anything out there too soon. There's going to be a few changes this season, and we're going to need time to bed in. And obviously we would have had a 6-week pre-season to get the ideas into the players, and we're going to be learning. The manager's going to be learning. So we're just going to be focusing on the first few game weeks, try and get off to a really strong start, and then see where we are. Yeah,
because it's a tough start, isn't it? Chelsea at home, a nice rivalry there, and then you've got Liverpool early as well. It is a tough beginning to the season, isn't it?
It's tough. But like, you can see it can go both ways, really. You can see, obviously, with the World Cup happening and these top teams having players sort of joining back to pre-season late, you could argue that it's a good time to play them. But yeah, on paper it's a really tough start, but it's something that we're going to be relishing.
No doubt you've got a tough session to get to now, Harrison, with your new boss.
Yeah, I think we've got a double session today, so straight to work.
Glad he's putting you through your paces.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Go well. There we are then. A new era for Fulham under Arbeloa. 2 new signings too from Real Madrid. Exciting times here at the Cottage. Well, not here at the Cottage. It's obviously the training ground, but here at the club.
We got what you meant. All right. Thanks, James. I tell you, I want to hear more from Harrison Reed. That was a good interview, wasn't it? Very, very open. I'd like to strike a football like him as well. That was some strike, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. Right, quick word on Fulham then. 2 interesting new signings from Real Madrid, particularly Gonzalo Garcia, the striker, Alvaro Arbeloa in, former Real Madrid coach for his first year. But it's the first time in a long time that Marco Silva has not been at the helm, and he's really moulded this Fulham into his way, hasn't he? So feels like this is a very big season coming up for Fulham with this change.
Well, it certainly is. Whenever you have change of manager, it's going to be a bit of a change of philosophy. But I actually think the way Fulham's run, there's such an established team in the Premier League now with a clear idea in terms of the ownership and the club down as to how they want to play and how they do things. So I don't think it's going to be a huge change for them in terms of players and what they're doing and style. Because Arbeloa is not Marco Silva, but I don't think there's probably going to be too much change. He'll have his own style, his own feel for things. But I actually think they're so well established. It's a really, really strong squad. I don't think they're done in the transfer window yet either. When you look at the likes of Raul Jimenez leaving, Harry Wilson leaving, who were a big part of that squad last year, I think they'll look to replace them. So they're going to get stronger, but it's a big step to take. To get into European football, it takes a lot of things to go your way, but it's nice to have that ambition, and let's see where it takes them.
Yeah, well, they weren't too far off, have they? Last few years, they've been pushing it. All right, stay with us. Lots on the way on Good Morning Transfers. Next, we are talking squad depth. Is Chelsea's too big? And more concerningly, are Liverpool looking far too light? Stay tuned. Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. We've got former Chelsea goalkeeper Asmir Begovic here with us, so we're going to discuss their business this summer before we move on to Liverpool as well. Firstly, I mean, the big news is the 2 surprise signings. They've completely changed tack in the last few days, haven't they? 36-year-old Jordan Henderson now through the door. 35-year-old Danny Welbeck is in. The general consensus has been quite positive on that. Is this an admission from Chelsea that they got it wrong in the last few years? They just needed some more experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a senior player myself, I'm all going to be for other senior players getting unbelievable moves like this. I wouldn't say it's necessarily wrong. I think when you look at the way Chelsea have operated, of course, the ownership have decided to go really young over the last couple of years and get those hot talents in, the best young players from around the world into the football club. But at the same time, to have a successful team, I think you need a well-balanced squad. And I think you do need to add a bit of experience, a little bit of know-how, guys who've been there through the trenches, who know what it takes to win trophies. And obviously Jordan Henderson, Danny Welbeck are, 2 fantastic senior professionals who are going to add a little bit of that experience and know-how to that squad. So I think it's just adding that blend, which if you look at all the top teams, they have. And I think it's a really shrewd move from Chelsea, and I think they're going to be really good additions.
I just wonder, because you're a big American sports fan, and I've always said in the last few years when we've talked about Chelsea on these shows, Matt, it's been a very interesting experiment, because they've kind of fallen in an NBA, NFL team when they're restructuring and kind of building back up. And then you add the experience. And so do you think that's kind of maybe what Chelsea and their ownership are looking at, is they've had a few years of these young players, they've got a bit of experience, but now it's time to sprinkle that experience in leadership?
100%, and that's what I mentioned earlier. I think their model has been a certain way over the last 2 or 3 years, and fair play to them. It's a really good thing to do, and I think to build. But again, if you want to win, if you want to challenge for those major trophies, which Chelsea want to do, that's what the club expects, that's what the fans expect. You need a well-rounded squad. So I think for them, it's time to put that experience in. They've seen that, they've addressed it, and I think that's the way football evolves, and any team evolves. You addressed last season, we look at what can we do better, what do we need, and that's obviously something they felt they needed for the whole squad.
So what should the ambitions be for Chelsea this season? There's a lot of positivity with the new manager coming in, big signing in Morgan Rogers, experience in now.
I think for them, it's first and foremost to get back in the Champions League. That's got to be goal number one. That's the bare minimum for a club like Chelsea. Now, can this squad gel? Can Xabi Alonso really bring his ideas into the squad sooner rather than later? And could they challenge a title? You never know. I think that might be a little step too far. But why not make sure you get back in the Champions League? That's first priority. Secondly, why not challenge in a couple of domestic cups? Chelsea have a great history of winning those trophies. So why not challenge the League Cup, the FA Cup, and maybe win another trophy and get the fans happy again?
I mean, just anecdotally, covering Manchester United last season, not being in any real competitions, being knocked out early, not having European football as well, there was just so many benefits for, say, Michael Carrick in that second half of the season in terms of the amount of time on the training ground, the amount of preparation you can have for games, of course, and there was so many bonuses that really helped them achieve that third place. So I think if you're Chelsea, there is no doubt they'll be looking at teams like Manchester United last season thinking that should be the aim in this upcoming season.
They're in that boat now, aren't they? And they've focused on improving the squad initially, but if you look on the website, I think something like 46, 47 players listed on the Chelsea website. Now, obviously, that's not sustainable. So are we expecting quite a few outgoings now, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. We heard yesterday Trevor Chalobah looks more and more seemingly on his way to Como, who, let's not forget, are in the Champions League and led by Cesc Fabregas, which, seems a great move for young Trevor Chalobah. We saw him get called up late for the England squad in the summer. Great experience for him to be part of that. But now he kind of probably goes somewhere where he'll get that consistent game time as well. His move back to Chelsea, was up and down, you'd probably say, last season, but that probably followed the team itself. In terms of other outgoings, as you mentioned, it is an inflated squad, but I think Xabi Alonso will be using this time. This is what pre-season is for all these new players and the players from last season to make an impression on Alonso before they decide which players will, eventually leave the club, whether that's on loan or in permanent moves away.
Well, as it is your former club, we've played a little game with you and asked you to pick your ideal Chelsea 11 to start the season. So, we gave you the option here of putting in players that have not been signed yet, realistic possible signings. First time I've seen it, so I don't know whether you have. No, you've kind of stuck with the players that are there. So this is your ideal Chelsea starting 11 for that first game. Just talk us through it.
Yeah, I like the team. I like some of the key players that Chelsea have. I really don't think they're going to add at the top end. Even if I wanted to add a big signing, I don't think there's much work to do. I think, as Dan, as you rightly said, I think it's more around the fringes, filling out that squad, subtracting some players. So I think this could well be sort of a starting 11. Now, I think where you look at Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers, Pedro Neto, I think that those are sort of positions that can interchange. You can see any of those three players playing in any of those three positions. And behind João Pedro, we've seen in the first couple of preseason friendlies, Xabi Alonso playing a back four. He played a back three at Leverkusen. So that was intriguing for everyone to see what it's going to look like. So it looks like a back four like he did at Real Madrid. I think this is what it could look like. Will Enzo Fernandez stay? There was a lot of talk about Real Madrid. But I think for now, if this is your starting 11 going into the season, with the depth they have, Chelsea looking very strong.
My question, though, for you, Asmir, is, you see Maxence Lacroix, centre-back. We see Morgan Rogers, a real spine there of signings with Caicedo and Fernandez all throughout. Cole Palmer, hopefully back to his best form. I think a lot of Chelsea fans will be wondering, the keeper, Robert Sanchez, do Chelsea still need to invest in a goalkeeper? Because they don't seem to be right now linked with many, and it was a consistent theme last season.
Yeah, I think Robert Sanchez is the number one for now. Let's put it that way. I think he's done enough definitely to be in that position. I think he's done some really good things. The one to look out for is Mike Penders.
Yeah.
So Xabi Alonso talk about him, bringing him back. From what I know, Chelsea rate him incredibly highly. So I think he's the one they're looking at for the future, maybe the not too distant future. Now, I'm always concerned when it's a younger goalkeeper going into a team like Chelsea with that pressure and expectation, he has to be ready. Whether you're going to bet him in a little bit more this year or not and give him number one gig, I don't know. But I think it's Robert Sanchez for now.
Okay, interesting. Now, we've spoken about Chelsea having a bloated squad at the moment. We're expecting some outgoings. On the flip side, Dan, is Liverpool's just looking a bit thin at the moment, and how concerning is that?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at what Andoni Iraola is working with in pre-season, first of all, he has a lot of young players, which you understand because they still have a few players from the World Cup on their break. But you go through this squad, and let's just do that very quickly. I mean, there is still a lot of long-term injuries here, players who are coming back or who aren't there for the foreseeable future. You look at Conor Bradley, he's still yet to come back. Giovanni Leone, Xhaka, big money signing from January, is due to join in the summer. He hasn't played in pre-season just yet. He's been nursing a bit of a knock. You look at Victor Munoz on the right-hand side. Who is going
Gomez
to replace?
Is injured now.
Absolutely, Joe Gomez not going to be available for the first game against Newcastle United. I would also look at the right wing. You know, we were all talking about how will they replace someone like Mo Salah. Victor Munoz, yes, has come in the summer, but arguably the left wing is his preferred position. Rio Ngamoa, you know, has been playing on the right in pre-season as well. But at the moment, Ekitike, of course, is out as well long term. There's a lot of gaps in the squad, so you just feel Andoni Iraola, although we saw Bournemouth how good he is at developing players, at Liverpool, at the moment, you have to say this isn't going to get them anywhere right now.
Well, Asmin, when you look at this, as Dan says there are you know, a few areas you could say you could strengthen. Looking at the injuries, what do you think is the most important area to strengthen first?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, if you look at this graphic here, and if everyone's fit and healthy, everything's well, it's not looking too shabby. It's okay, but we know that's not the real world. That's not what reality is. So I think for me, looking at this, I'd be very worried about the centre-half position. I think Joe Gomez, unfortunately, with his injury record, how many games is he going to play? Again, you're talking about multiple competitions, hoping to do it, you know, having a deep run in those competitions. You need players that are reliable on Leone, Xhaka, two young players. Leone coming off a big injury. How much can you load him? How much can you put him out there? I think that's one where you really have to address. And then I think the obvious one is the right wing position. Victor Munoz coming into the Premier League. Is the expectation for him to play every single game, every single minute? I don't think so. I think you need to bring a proven player in. Bradley Barcola is one they're talking about. I think that's sort of their main candidate. But the way I know Richard Hughes, who runs Liverpool, I'd be shocked if he doesn't bring at least 2 or 3 more players.
Yeah, centre back was a discussion point, wasn't it, last year? And will they dip into the market? We will wait and see. Right, don't go anywhere. After the break, we're going to be talking goalkeepers, of course. And we'll be getting Asmir's thoughts on whether transfer fees for keepers should be higher. I reckon I know what he's going to say here. Bring you some of the other transfer headlines this morning, and Napoli striker Romelu Lukaku is attracting interest from the MLS club Atlanta United. That's according to our colleagues at Sky in Italy. The 33-year-old, who was out injured for an extended period last season, has fallen down the pecking order at Napoli, where he's got 1 year to run on his current contract. Sky in Italy also reporting that Inter Milan require sales before they can try to sign Liverpool's Curtis Jones or Spurs' Christian Romero. Both players figure highly on their list of targets for the summer window and face uncertain futures at their respective Premier League clubs. West Ham have confirmed Freddie Potts has joined Club Brugge on a permanent transfer for an undisclosed fee. Celtic manager Martin O'Neill says it would be nice to still have Arne Engels and Alistair Johnston in the side for their Champions League qualifiers this month. West Ham are pursuing Engels and Everton have made contact over Johnston. And Spurs are interested in Liverpool's Cody Gakpo. Head coach Roberto De Zerbi is aiming to add at least one wide attacker after bringing in reinforcements in midfield and defence. But we're going to talk goalkeepers now, and in particular goalkeeper transfer prices. Are they undervalued? Does history tell us that, Dan?
Well, it's very interesting when you comparatively look at fees paid for the goalkeepers we've seen in previous years compared to some of the biggest transfers we've seen, for example, this summer. So you can look at this graphic, Asma. It's very interesting when you look at the most expensive goalkeepers of all time. And you look at Kepa, for example, Alisson. Chevalier was signed at PSG to replace Donnarumma. Then he didn't even play that much last season, did he? We didn't see him in the Champions League final. Andre Onana was a huge big money signing to Manchester United a few years ago, and Thibaut Courtois was obviously hugely successful at Real Madrid. But actually, the majority of those signings, I guess there's two questions for you, Asma. You would say the majority haven't been successful. Alisson obviously hugely at Liverpool, but then also these fees are nowhere near what we see, say, what Morgan Rogers has gone to Chelsea for.
You've been very kind to goalkeepers, Dan. I like that, the way you've described everything. But I think it's a big topic in terms of transfer fees for goalkeepers. Of course, it's nowhere near what you look at the spending on some of the attacking players and defenders. And there's probably a number of reasons for that. I think there's always a different kind of value on goalkeepers. I wouldn't say it's an afterthought, but it's something where it's not always the priority for most teams. It's usually something where they'll put a certain amount of budget to it, but they don't see it as always the main priority in terms of building a team or building a squad. So that's one thing. Then, of course, when you look at that graphic where the top 5 most expensive goalkeepers, 3 probably didn't quite work out. So again, that puts teams a little bit more on the back foot and doesn't make them want to invest that sort of money in a goalkeeper. Again, I think for me, it's nonsense and say it's not an important position. It's something where if you want to get a right goalkeeper, you should invest, but also at the same time making sure you build the right goalkeeper department and everyone knows their role and their position within it.
But it's a common theme in punditry. It's happened for years. That, you can't win big tournaments, big competitions if you haven't got a proper goalkeeper. So why are goalkeepers not as expensive as, say, getting an important centre-back?
And it's crazy, right? Because if you look at the 2 goalkeepers and playing the Champions League final last year, both weren't bought for huge fees, considering, again, in comparison to the rest. So it's almost like a model. It's a copycat business we're in. Well, everyone thinks we can get a goalkeeper, good one, for a good price, and he's not going to cost the bank. And if he's going to do well and he's going to develop, and we can actually do that. So that seems to be the trend. That's the market. And until that changes, if we saw more Alissons where he was really wanted, he was the number one option, you're going to give everything you wanted, his success, and I think more teams would do that. But they actually see it as a position where, no, we can go a little bit under the radar, try and find the right one, and then develop him within our system, and then, have some good success with him.
Just to make another American football reference, it feels very much like running backs, though, in the NFL, where, they are so instrumental to every single
team. And they're
team.
underpaid.
But they're undervalued, underpaid. And, I think Asma, again, can speak more to this, but again, I use Manchester United as a great example. Andre Onana, we saw on that list, and we know maybe that move hasn't quite worked out. He's on his second loan back in Turkey. But then Manchester United went down a different avenue and they signed Senna Lomans last summer, who had only one full season as a first-team goalkeeper, but was largely successful in the Premier League last year. So I don't know what it is, but it seems like there's not a perfect science almost to find the right number one, maybe comparatively to other positions. I don't know if that's right. That's probably my theory a little bit.
I mean, earlier theory in a comparison running back is absolutely spot on. It's perfect. But I also think that what teams have done now is instead of, they feel like there's a lot more similar goalkeepers out there. So instead of spending 120 or 100 million on one, they'll spend 3 on 30, 3 times 30, and they almost think, well, if one doesn't work out, we'll get another one. If you look at Man United, other clubs, they've gone through goalkeepers many, many times. And, I just think it doesn't generally work. I still think if you go and get a goalkeeper, go get the one you want, spend the money that you want, and then normally it works out quite well.
Do you think there's an element in this of just the position? It's not seen as like a cool position to want to play, and therefore it kind of gets undervalued, gets lost a little bit. I mean, there aren't that many kids who grow up saying, I want to be a goalkeeper, the ones that are very good with their hands of a certain size. But so many kids grow up wanting to be outfield players. I wonder if that just sort of bleeds into like how we value goalkeepers in fees that are paid by clubs.
Oh, it certainly all bleeds in. There's definitely a certain stigma. There's a narrative on goalkeepers. You know, I think it's very difficult to inspire some of the youngsters to really play in goal and want to play in goal. They almost get either put there or they're there by default just because they have to be, and there might be access to the outfield players.
6'6".
Right, or yeah, it might be to their size, their physical stature, whatever it may be. So definitely there is that. I think there is just a stigma all around. I think if you look at goalkeeper coaching, there isn't enough of that. There isn't enough, ex-top players, top goalkeepers who go into coaching. It's a very undervalued industry within football in its own. So it's something that needs to change. I think the more investment, the more understanding of the position there is, I think the more goalkeepers who've played the highest level we can get involved and start growing it. And I think there'll be a better understanding of it within clubs as well.
I think on this point, a great example is someone like James Trafford, right? So last season, he started at Manchester City. He thought he was going back to Manchester City as a number one. And he maybe made a few mistakes. And then they brought Donnarumma in, right? But what I want to ask you, Asmir, is it looks like he could be going to Leeds United potentially. Might make that list at £40 million. But I guess, first of all, what do you make of that deal? But also, I mean, I guess his situation is a great example of what we're talking about, as to maybe sometimes there isn't all that much patience. And for that individual, it can be a huge knock.
Well, it's just really, really crazy. I mean, I think if you look at especially English goalkeepers, there's not many around, youngsters of his caliber. So I think, again, that brings a certain value. It brings a certain transfer fee. Within that, if you look at James Trafford, he goes to Burnley. You know, I think makes a brave move for Man City back then. Has a decent time there. And, of course, Man City buy him back because they can. You don't say no to Man City. The financial rewards, everything else might not be the number one best move for his career, but he has to do it for many different reasons. You spend another year, and now I think the Leeds move is a really, really good move for him, because if he gets to play week in and week out in the Premier League, then he's in a fantastic situation. But again, Leeds are a team that's not exactly established in the Premier League, so they could have a season where it becomes difficult. I look at the likes of Aaron Ramsdale. There's players who get lost a little bit in this cycle. So I hope it works out for him. I think it's a good move for Leeds, and I wish him all the very best.
All right, we've got one more part to come on Good Morning Transfers. Asmir got a good look at the three promoted sides last season, so we'll get his thoughts on their business. Mykhailo Mudryk has returned to Chelsea after his anti-doping proceedings, but could he be off, going somewhere else? We'll tell you where he could potentially be going next. Exclusive breaking news for you now, and Serie A club Frosinone have rejected an £8 million bid from Rangers for their winger Fares Guimaraes. That comes days after their old firm rival Celtic had an offer of £6 million turned down. Sky Sports News understands that the Italian outfit are reluctant to sell the Algeria international this summer unless they receive an offer of around £13 to £17 million. The 23-year-old has scored 15 goals and provided 3 assists for Frosinone last season as they clinched promotion to Italy's top flight. And his performances landed him a spot in Algeria's World Cup squad as well. So an interesting one developing here. Could Celtic and Rangers be going head-to-head for Fares Guimaraes? Right, we're going to talk Newcastle now. We spoke earlier in the show about what Bruno Guimaraes' arrival could do for Arsenal. But Dan, from Newcastle's point of view, should they absolutely fight tooth and nail to try and keep him? Because losing Gordon alongside Guimaraes and Tonali, that is just ripping the heart out of the team. Surely they've got to fight really hard to keep him there, even if he wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to really empathise for every fan who goes to St James's Park, every other week, seeing a team that gave them such great memories over the last few years, whether that's been Champions League nights or winning the Carabao Cup, first domestic trophy in 70 years. I mean, so many of these players we talked about were instrumental to that. And the very interesting aspect is you look at now what they've done this summer. I mean, those outgoings, as you mentioned, Sandro Tonali, you can kind of put Bruno Guimaraes as a TBC on that list as well, Anthony Gordon, Kieran Trippier. And you also look at Emil Kraft as well, run out of his contract. You look at the average age of those departures, you're looking at 29 years old. Now you look at the 5 incomings, it's at 20 years old. So very different strategy in terms of trying to build a new squad. The oldest coming in is Lucas Hornacek at 24 years old. So it's very interesting what Newcastle are trying to do. I mean, Mark McAdam did a great explainer last night on the transfer show, explaining why these sales are so imperative for the future of their finances. But, I mean, Asma, I would ask you, if you're a member of that Newcastle squad, someone like Lewis Hall is another player who was key for last season, being linked with a move away. I mean, what are you thinking if you're one of those players? Are you thinking, well, we have a new manager, let's try. Let's go again. Or are you thinking, I might want to join them in the exit door?
Yeah, well, I think if you're an ambitious player, and again, we talked about Bruno Guimaraes earlier, I think what's Newcastle's downfall is the fact that they don't have European football. And, a lot of players, it's a short career. There's not a lot of patience in it. You want to go and win and touch yourself at the highest level. So I think when you look at Anthony Gordon going to Barcelona, Tonali to Tottenham, of course, Bruno Guimaraes, if he does go to Arsenal, you can't help but feel there might be other players doing the same thing. And then Newcastle doing a total rebuild, so to say, going in a different direction with a new manager, a totally young squad, and building again for the future, because it is really difficult when you do push. And I do think Newcastle, to a certain extent, have overachieved. And that's maybe whether their own worst enemies. They've overachieved, and now you're paying the price a little bit for that financially. And of course, with players wanting to play at that level, now they've had a taste for it.
All right, guys, we're running out of time quite severely here. So I want to whip through some questions on the three promoted sides here quickly if we can. You've got a good look at all three sides playing for Leicester last year. Let's start with Coventry, another goalkeeper. They're closing in on a club record deal for Carl Rushworth from Brighton. How good is he? How important was he to the side last year?
Yeah, I think it's a move that makes sense. He was fantastic for them last year. Really, really impressive. I think he's a fan favourite. They all love him there. So I think bringing him in at a good price, he's a good age. He can obviously still continue to get better and better as time goes on. And, I see Coventry, it's going to be a big ask for any promoted team. They'll still do a lot of business now in August. It's going to get crazy with some of the bigger teams filtering down their squad. So I think there's going to be definitely lots of players available.
Also some stories in the newspapers linking Coventry with Mykhailo Mudryk, which would be a fascinating move, wouldn't it? Obviously, he played under Frank Lampard back in 2023. How do you think Lampard's going to approach this final end of the window? Do you think he might raid Chelsea for a few loans, perhaps?
I can definitely see that happening without a doubt. I think when you look at Frank Lampard's relationship with Chelsea, I think he'll know some of these players inside out. And Mudryk would be a great signing in the fact that he's low risk. The player wants to go back, prove himself. Won't take a lot to probably get him in one way or another. So I think could be a very interesting signing.
Ipswich have been pretty busy. Let's take a look at some of the business that they've done so far briefly. You can see there a few players coming in. Kipre was on loan, so he's been made permanent. Emerson, striker from Toulouse, big money for him. They brought in a couple of keepers as well, including Kjell Scherpen, Issa Diop from Fulham, Daizen Maeda from Celtic. Ipswich have been busy. Hull, the one that concerns you at the moment. Do they need to really get going, do some business?
Yeah, certainly do. I think it's a big change going from Championship Premier League, big jump. We've seen the teams last year invest a lot to bring in proven players. So I see Hull again being very, very busy, bringing a lot more players in and strengthening that squad.
Absolute pleasure to have you on board. Always is.
Thank you,
we
guys.
always love our goalkeeper chats as well. Let's make goalkeepers great again. No, they've always been great.
Love it.
Dan, good to see you as well. Loads more to come throughout the day, of course. Coming up next, it is Sky Sports FC with Charlie Austin and Tom White. Loads more on Bruno Guimaraes. They're going to ask the question, do Arsenal really need him?